of Michigan is the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, and he's been outspoken that the sequester is not just an economic issue, but a matter of national security. He joins me right now. Congressman, good to have you on the program.
Great to be here. Thanks.
I really want to talk about this national security issue because this is scary.
Yeah.
We don't even know, what programs are being impacted. But first, let me put that aside for a moment because I want to get your reaction to the hot news story of the day, and that is the IRS today is admitting and apologizing for inappropriately targeting conservative groups leading up to the election. They wanted more information,
Absolutely outrageous. This is criminal activity. There's really no other way to look at it. You cannot have a government organization targeting groups because of their political beliefs. This ought to down every American spine. I don't care if you're not conservative or you are conservative. This is dangerous when a government entity believes that they have the responsibility to go out and target groups because of their political beliefs. This is very dangerous.
Well, it sounds like thuggery.
Well, it is thuggery. And think about what the IRS has even more latitude about getting your information than other law enforcement groups. The FBI couldn't go and get certain pieces of information without a warrant or a subpoena. The IRS has information without any of that. And there is requirements that you pay your taxes. You don't have the same kind of due process protections. That's why this is so dangerous. I imagine there will be full-blown investigations in Congress. Somebody needs to be held accountable.
Now, the IRS is saying, look, this was low-level workers. The top officials didn't know about it. Once we figured out what was going on, we moved to stop it. Are you going to do an investigation?
Oh, absolutely. And we found with other investigations that are in the news that top-level folks said they didn't know what was going on. Find out later they did. In this case, it's a swing state. I don't believe in coincidence all that much. A swing state in a very tough election, and the IRS seeks to target groups in that state. Something doesn't smell right, and we're going to have to get to the bottom of this.
Right, and they wanted tax-exempt status, which was appropriate, these groups, but they looked for the words Tea Party and Patriot. And that's how they targeted the groups to actually...
outrageous.
Outrageous.
I mean, somebody needs to be consequences for this. You need to send a very clear and strong signal that this is inappropriate at the low end and maybe even criminal at the high end, and we're going to have to make that determination.
Well, we'll see. Let me get your reaction to what Secretary Lewis said about the sequester, that it's hurting the economy.
Yeah. That may in fact be true. We haven't seen any real, I just haven't seen the data that hurts the economy. What I am worried about is they took 2.4 cents of cuts across the whole budget and jammed it in to certain line items that were national security related. So it wasn't, if you took just 2 cents across the whole budget, I think most Americans would say, yeah, we can probably sustain that. But when you jam it into a very few short line items, especially in the intelligence business, it has real ramifications. So the 2 cents really equals about 15 cents on the dollar of spending by the time you get to certain line items, and that may in fact impact operations, intelligence operations. Really a lousy way to run a railroad. This should have, I do believe you can find 2.4 cents of spending per dollar across the federal government. I don't think you ought to lump it in to some of our most important national security programs.
But if we're cutting, like in a blunt way, defense, and we don't even know the programs that are being impacted. So, in terms of our own national security, how significant is this? Because we don't necessarily know where these cuts are going to hit, and that's the issue.
Exactly, and that's why we've been arguing for give us flexibility. As the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, I oversee all 16 intelligence agencies and the unclassified number of about $78 billion worth of spending. If we have some flexibility in there, we can probably even make it work. But what the problem is, we're just taking a haircut across the top. Some line items have a lot of money in it, some have a little money in it, but the impact on the little line items is huge, and it might be a specific operation that we're conducting. That's the problem with the way you do this. You have to allow management to be able to manage the reduction of the spending in certain line items.
Well, the same thing with the FAA. I mean, we should have been cutting back on certain people where the airports weren't as busy, but instead we did it in this blunt fashion. Right. Why can't we have more flexibility and be more organized about
this?
Well,
unfortunately, the president said he didn't want it, and the Senate said that they wouldn't support it, and that was unfortunate. I think we should have given flexibility. We should have given them the opportunity to manage their way through the sequester. We didn't do that. They didn't want it. They want to make it a political issue, and that's unfortunate. This is serious business. When you start cutting line items that may in fact stop intelligence operations around the world, that's troublesome. Or make decisions for the military rather than the military making their own management decisions. That's when it gets dangerous. So we need to build some flexibility in here. Hopefully we can work with the White House and convince them it's the right way to go.
Let me get your take on the other threats that we all face. I mean, national security, obviously a major issue. But you've got cyber threats, you've got, the threat from North Korea, the threat from Syria. Characterize what we're seeing in today's day and age.
Well, we've got a lot of those, and they're all very different. So the threat from North Korea is when you have a country and a leader saying he's willing to have a nuclear exchange with the United States, you better take it seriously, especially when we know he has capabilities. We don't know if he has nuclear capabilities. We know he has missile capabilities. We just don't know how close he is. We're going to have to take it seriously. But the one thing that's affecting the room that we're in today, every single day, is cybersecurity threats. The intellectual property that this floor is based on, the trading of equities and around the world and for the value of U.S. companies, is being ripped off every single day by nation states like China in an unprecedented way. And so
how are they doing it?
Well, they have their military and intelligence trained professionals whose job it is to steal intellectual property, to break into company networks, steal those blueprints, take it back to places like China, to repurpose it to compete against them. And we've seen it over and over and over again. I will venture to guess that any company that's registered to trade here today has been hacked, and somebody's trying to steal their intellectual property. And I mean every single one.
And somebody told me, banks face this issue 400,000 times a day.
Yeah.
To hack their system. So real quick, why is it always China? Why does everyone say it's China?
Well, other countries have the capabilities, and then non-nation actors like organized crime, especially in the Eastern Bloc, have capability. But China has done something that no other country really has done. It's dedicated its military and intelligence services to the sole purpose of stealing intellectual property. America and others, we're not alone, Germany, South Korea, other innovation economies, to steal that information, to take it back, to copy it and repurpose it in the economy. They have to grow at about 7% a year just to sustain their social programs and social safety nets. They're not innovating, so what they're doing is stealing it. And the problem is they've had no consequence today. So they're doing this. They're getting away with it. They're putting products in competition, and they've had no consequence. So talking about it or stomping our feet or saying we're going to have talks about it isn't going to slow them down, because it's been so beneficial to their end game, which is economic growth in China.
Sure. Really fascinating. Yeah. Congressman, good to have you on the program.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Yeah. We appreciate it. Representative Mike Rogers from Michigan. Then versus now, we'll take a look at how the Dow Jones Industrial Average has